Okay, so today we're going to shift gears slightly. We're still going to be talking about animation, but instead of throwing balls off walls and bouncing around, we're going to focus on other ways that you can animate in keyframe attributes. So right now what I have playing is a camera animation, but the only value that's changing is the focus distance. Okay, so I'm animating basically the depth of field. And you can see as I start on frame 1, my focus is all the way on the back edge. And as I move to frame 48, now the front of these switches comes into focus. So that's what I'm animating here. I'll talk about how I got there. So I'm going to open up a new scene. And let's not save. And actually, by new scene, what I mean is that scene that I just had open, but I want to just reopen it. Okay. So for those in this class, this is going to be most relevant. I've got my scene with, this is the clay version of my scene. Actually, I want to be in perspective mode. So I've got the one camera that I used for my wide shot still renders. I've got my background. I've got my lighting setups. I'm just going to use my side light scene. Okay. And I guess the first thing that I want to show is just how to do a quick turntable animation. There's a few different ways to do it. I think the easiest way is I'm going to select all of the components of my Space Kid. So just click and drag across. Nope, that didn't work at all. Because I didn't use the version of this that has them all in a group. Just going to hide that. Oops. Zoom in here. Let's make sure I get everything. And I'm going to group it. And I name this group, Space Kid, or Space Kid 1. It auto renamed. And so, if I want to animate my turntable, real simple here. I'm going to go to frame 1. I'm going to select my Space Kid group. I'm going to hit Shift E to add a keyframe for my rotation values. And then I'm going to move. I'm going to think about how long do I want this turntable animation to be. I don't want it to be too fast, so I can't see what's going on. But if I do too many keyframes, or too many frames, too long of an animation, it's going to take forever to render. So I'm going to call it a. Let's go with like a 3-second animation. And so that would be 24 frames a second. So I want 72. I'm actually going to go to frame 73, and I'll tell you why in a second. So frame 1, I've got my rotate Y value. Okay, that's the axis it's going to spin around. Now on frame 73, I want to set that value. I'm going to have them rotate this way. I want one full rotation, so that's going to set them to negative 360. Nope, not positive. Negative. There we go. Okay. So what I've done is I've animated him turning around. Lovely. But I only want to play the animation back to frame 72. Play this back with frame 73. We can see that it stops for a second before it loops. And if I want this turntable to be loopable, which we'll say that I do, I don't want to play that last frame so it doesn't double up. And it's kind of tough to see because it's got the ease in and ease out happening right now. So I'm going to select my graph. I'm going to make it linear. It's going to make this a lot easier to see. Click play. And actually, that's not... let me go to frame 73 so it has the full range. There we go. You feel that little hiccup there? It's subtle, but it's there. So in order to get rid of that, we're only going to play back to the frame right before, so that it's facing forward at the beginning, and then right before it gets back to facing forward, it loops back to the beginning. So it's only playing it facing forward once. Okay, and that's going to feel a lot better. And it's actually a pretty good pace too. So that's how you'd create the turntable animation. From there, you can think about bringing your camera in, and maybe, you probably want one wide shot where it's, just so you can see the whole model, and you can see it turning around, and just get an idea of what it looks like overall. And actually, I'm going to want you to do that for both the full rendered version, but also a wireframe and a clay model too, so we can see it in all three different forms, and you can do some creative transitions between those renders as a way to kind of reveal the different layers and reveal the work that went into it. So that's the animation. Now, if we want to take that a little bit further, we can also animate the camera that's looking at it. All right, so I'm going to add a new camera. All right, and I'm going to do camera and aim. I'm going to name this. Select my camera first, and this is going to be, I'm going to call it turntable mid. Actually, I'm going to call it cam underscore turntable mid, so I know it's a camera. All right, now we need to set frame 1. So I'm going to first set my focus point, and I want where the camera is looking to be right about at the center. I'm going to pull my camera away so it's not freaking out on me. I'm going to select my, zoom in here. There we go. Select my camera 3 aim. And I'm going to go into my turntable camera. So I'm going to start the aim right. Whoop. It gets tricky when you try to adjust the aim when you're looking through the camera. It kind of compounds itself. But I'm going to start that there. Let's actually look at it from this view here. Move that up. Go to frame 1 here. All right, so we're going to start here. And I'm going to set a position keyframe for both my camera and my aim target. I could also just set the position keyframe for my group. So I'll do that. I'm going to select my camera group in the outliner here. Then I'm going to hit Shift W to set keyframes for the translate on frame 1. And then I'm going to go to frame 73 or 72. Okay, because this isn't going to loop, so I can just go to frame 72. And I'm going to move, whoop, too far. Move it up to about there. Okay. So I only adjusted the Y, so that keyframe updated. And now we can play that back and see what that looks like. Okay. That feels a little fast. But, actually, it feels a little fast, and there's one other thing that I want to adjust. So I'm going to grab my camera itself. I like where it starts, so I'm going to hit Shift W to add a position keyframe there. And go to frame 73. And I want this now to kind of come around the front a little bit. So I'm going to kind of go right about here, maybe. Okay, let's play that back and see what that looks like. Oh, we need to be in this view. There we go. So we're kind of coming around the front a little bit. Now, the last thing that I want to do is I want to make this feel a little bit more dramatic. And I'm going to do that through the Zack Snyder method of speed ramping. So, how do you speed ramp? Well, let me show you. So the idea of speed ramping, if you've ever seen the movie 300 or just about anything Zack Snyder's done, is that you'll see a scene play back really fast and then slow down to super slow motion and then speed back up. Okay, so it slows down and you see this. Usually there's some blood involved, a blood splatter or a limb being removed or somebody getting kicked in the chest down a pit. And then after that happens, it speeds back up. And if you want to make that even more interesting, you could have it in one shot, move really fast and slow down, and then cut to another shot of that same action, moving really slow, and then speed up. So you're getting actually 2 shots in there. So that's kind of how you do it. But now, let's figure out how we're actually going to make it look like that. And let me move this to my camera turntable there. I'm also going to turn on my film gate and make sure that I have my camera set to, where is it? There it is. 35 millimeter, 1.85 projection, so I've got a wide angle. Okay. So the way that I'm going to do that is I like the speed of it at the beginning, right? And then I think right about here, I will say here, I want it to slow down. Okay, so it's right at the end that I want it to slow down. Actually, maybe a little bit before. So I'm going to set my keyframe for my translation for my camera. So Shift W. I'm going to select my group as well. Set a keyframe there for that too. I'm going to select them both so I can select all of these at the same time. Let's see, what else do I have going on there? Oh, I've got the rotation that I don't care about. Yeah, okay. And so to make this go really, really slow is I need the same action to happen over more frames. So I'm just going to select these end frames. Let's bring this out to like 200. I don't need that many frames. I just want to have space. Then I'm going to hit W to bring up my move tool, hold down Shift, and middle click and drag to move these out. And we need to kind of pan over here. So it was ending at frame 72 from 58, so that is 14 frames. Let's see. Let's go to like 122. Let's see how that looks. We'll maximize this view. And go back to frame 1. Oops, there we go. Back to the beginning. And hit play and see what this looks like. So we're going to go fast. Then right here, we're going to slow down. Okay. That is not interesting at all. So we need to make that much better. And I think there's a couple things that needs to happen. First, this transition is way too abrupt. Also, he kind of stops turning, which makes that less interesting too. So I'm going to go to my last frame. And let's go to quad view so we can really see what's going on. This I want to be that. So we start here. Hit that. Ah, I know what happened. I also need my turntable to slow down. So let me select my Space Kid. Okay, because I need everything to slow down. That's how this works. Select my Space Kid. I'm going to go to my graph editor. And we're going to go here. We're going to frame everything up. So I'm going to, let's see, what frame was that? Was it 58, I believe? Yeah, 58. Okay, so now I go to my Space Kid to frame 58. I'm going to Shift E for a keyframe, and then I'm going to drag out this end bit to frame 122 as well. Now also seems like a really good time to show you the dope sheet. The dope sheet is like the graph editor, but there's no graphs. It's just a way to move the timing of keyframes. So if I go to panels, panel, and dope sheet, this is what the dope sheet looks like, and it's the same information. It's just presented in a different way, and you can't change the value. So you can't like make something, instead of being 10 units off the ground, make it be 5 units off the ground. You can only adjust when that keyframe happens. But I'm just going to use this, and I'm going to move that last keyframe all the way to frame 122, which is, I need to give myself some room so I can see what's going on. Let's see, frame 122. Okay. Right? No. That's 122. Okay. One other note about the dope sheet. As I kind of go through this, you can see it looks like we have 2 keyframes, but the top line is just the summary. So if I also select the camera, it's a hierarchy. So this is indicating that there's a keyframe before the group. This dope sheet is indicating that there is a keyframe on that frame, but you just need to figure out which keyframe it is. So this will tell you for everything in the scene if there's a keyframe there that you have selected. That probably doesn't make sense. But yeah, that's the dope sheet. You can use it if you want. For the majority of what we're doing, you won't really need it. You can stick to the graph editor, and it does, again, for just moving keyframes around, you can do it in either one. But so now that I've also stretched out the turntable part of this, let me go back to my camera and set my end to 122 and go to frame 1 and hit play and see what this looks like now. There we go. That's looking better. So it's fast, and then it slows down. Okay, and you can make this more extreme. If I want that fast part to be even faster, okay, I'm going to select, in the outliner, I'm selecting all of the things that I have animated currently. Let's frame them up. And so, actually, let's just select everything here. So what I can do is I'll select both of these keyframes, shift, right click, move them to the right. Okay, so now in a second and a half, that first part's going to happen. And then at the end here, I'm going to make these all still finish about 122, which is 1, 2, there. Okay, let's see how that looks. Okay. There's probably too much flashy, spinny stuff at the beginning, but that's okay. You can just render out the frames that you want, which I would encourage. Figure out what frames you need rendered and don't render any more, because that just takes time. But the last thing that I would say for the speed ramp is it's not really ramping, it's just changing. So we want to ease that transition. Okay, so again, in the graph editor, I'm going to select my Y rotate, make sure that we have that nice and smooth, which we do. But I think our camera group needs to be a little bit smoother. I don't like how this kind of goes up and back down. Oops. So I'm gonna do that. Kind of expand that. Whoops. Expand that out a little bit. I'm gonna break the tangents so that I can adjust them individually. Let's also do spline tangents. Yeah. So do that. Oops. Oh, that's not what I want. Just give me that. There we go. Let's try to keep that as smooth as I can. Oops. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, it's gonna need, that's better. I need a little more finessing, but I think you get the idea. So that's speed ramping. If you want something to go faster, move the keyframes closer together. If you want something to go slower, move those keyframes further apart. I applied keyframes to my translate rotation and scale values. I can apply keyframes everywhere else too. So I'm going to add a new camera. This will be camera and aim. I'm going to name, first I'm going to look through this. It's camera 4. I'm going to select it in the outliner. I'm going to name this cam_focus, because that's what I'm going to demonstrate here. And in my quad view, I'm going to position my initial camera. So I've got, let's see, I'll put this camera over here. I'm going to go to frame 1. I'm going to select this, my point of interest. And bring this over here. Okay, then I'm going to select them both. Move them up in the world. It's about there. Okay. So this will work the same way. I position my point of interest right at those switches on my character, and then I'm going to go to my perspective and look through my camera. Kind of figure out where I want that to be. So I've added my camera. I'm going to turn on my film gate so I can see what my camera is actually seeing specifically. In my attribute editor, I'm going to set my film gate to 35mm 1.85 projection, which is my nice 16:9 widescreen format. I'm also going to set my focal length. Okay, this is the value. If you want to animate a zoom, this is the value that you animate. So 35 is a fairly wide angle. As I move that to the right, I'm zooming in. I can zoom in really far, up to a 3,500mm lens, which is ridiculous. And I can zoom all the way out to a 2.5mm lens, which is a fisheye wide angle. Okay. General guidelines for lenses. You by no means have to stick to them, but traditionally, wider angles, 24, 28, 35mm is kind of your wide establishing shot angles. Buildings, landscapes, and the like. 50mm is called your standard lens. Mid shots and the like, and then moving in a little bit closer, 85, 100, 120. 170 or 180, whatever. Those are your telephoto lenses for things like close-ups. But if I want to get really close on these switches, maybe I'll set my focal length to like 180. Let me jump to the quad view here. I'm going to move and position my camera. Whoops, undo that. I want to just select my camera. To position it down here, and it's why are you not looking at my aiming? Look at this. There we go. Position my aim appropriately so that the camera is looking in the right spot. Okay. Maybe I'll go for more of a, no, I'm gonna keep it right here. Oops. Why am I suddenly not seeing my camera? Oh, I see what happened. I see what happened. My aim is in the wrong spot. Okay. So I positioned my camera. Now if I want to animate a rack focus, a shift in the depth of field, I'm going to select my camera. I'm going to scroll down to the depth of field section. I'm going to turn on depth of field. And then I need to figure out where I want my focus to be. So I want it to start fairly close, right around here. So if I look on the screen up here, excuse me, that appears to be just shy of 3 units away. So I'm going to set my focus distance to like 2.8. That's close, maybe a little further, 2.9, 3.2 maybe. Okay, 3.2, I'm right here, so I need to pull it back. Let's go like 2.7. Nope, that's too much. 2.95 brings me there. 3, I think, is a little is there, so we're gonna go 2.85, 2.8, 2.75. Okay, that's good enough. We're gonna start it there. So to set a keyframe for focus or any value, all you have to do is right click on it and say set key. I've set my key. Now I'm gonna go to frame 70. And I'm going to set another keyframe. Okay, now I know this model is rotating, so it's going to make this a little bit more complicated. Or a little further. Now set my focus distance like 3.5. Actually, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull that cooking show thing where I just open up an already completed scene. The magic of editing / pausing the recording. I have my camera right here, and I have animated my focus distance. It starts all the way down at the end, and then at the end of it, it brings these switches into focus. I can play that back, and you can see how this looks. Okay, you can see that focus shifting. Now, one note about kind of aperture and focus in Maya. While normally on an actual real-world camera, a camera with an f-stop of 22 is going to have a very deep range of focus. A lot will be in focus. In Maya, it's a little bit more extreme, and it's probably something to do with the focus region scale, but you'll just have to up the f-stop more than you might normally. So maybe we go to like, well, the maximum is 64, and you can see that's definitely better. I wonder what happens if we do that. I don't know. I don't know what that does. Okay, so now I play that back, and you can see that focus pulls through. Okay, so that's how you animate depth of field. I would love to see this as well in your final renders. Just add some more kind of realism to your scenes.